We've all seen the movie The Matrix. It was interesting and fun on the big screen of the TV, but has it become a bit too real in your own life? Are you seeing glitches in the Matrix and trying to figure out what's happening? Have you been told that you've been tricked and that you need to fight against what they've done to you? The deception. Whether you're just beginning to notice, or if you've been searching for a more peaceful and congruent way to live without battling them, you're in the right place. I'm Ken, and I'll be joined by Eliza and Reina Stella. Let's explore together on the Liberty Ark. Welcome back to the Liberty Ark Podcast. This is Ken, and with me tonight, as always, is Eliza and Reina Stella. And I'm going to force them to try to figure out who's talking first. Hey, you even got the direction right there. That was good. I mean, on my screen, the direction's right.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah. How you guys doing tonight?
Very, very good.
Okay.
Excited to continue that topic we left off of into an even more important topic. So, yes, doing good.
How about you, Eliza?
Doing really well. Happy to be here. And like Reina Stella said, great stuff that we're discussing. So great continuation.
As always, we're having conversations over, I guess it's not really study, we're having conversations over a book called The Great International Heist, written by friends of ours, Rebecca and Jonathan Rodrigues. And we've got some good concepts we're going to go over tonight. And as always, Eliza's going to read for us, and then we'll come back and talk about the reading. So I'm going to bring up everything on the big screen, and you go ahead, Eliza.
Thank you, Ken. Episode 11, Reclaiming Autonomy, Legal Awareness and Self-Advocacy. Just as financial literacy is crucial, so is legal awareness, understanding the legal frameworks that underpin contracts, debt, and obligations can demystify the processes that keep individuals bound. Self-advocacy in legal matters means knowing one's rights and how to protect them. This can involve learning about consumer protection laws, understanding the implications of signing contracts, and knowing how to seek legal redress when necessary. Building community support networks. Breaking free from financial and legal bondage is not a journey that must be undertaken alone. Building and participating in community support networks can provide the emotional and practical support necessary for this challenging endeavor. Communities can pool resources, share knowledge, and provide mutual aid to help each other break free from debt and legal entanglements. These networks can also advocate for systemic changes, such as more accessible financial education and more transparent legal processes.
All right. This should be kind of a fun conversation. It's not heavy. It's, I think, useful, but not heavy to talk through like some of the concepts we've gone over.
Oh, it's a good one.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
Just because as I was reading, we talk about advocacy and self-advocacy. What are we talking about there? Does everyone, embrace what it means to be an advocate of something, or especially to have self-advocacy? I think that's something that we need to define up front.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think the self-advocacy is the one that most people don't think of. They usually think of an advocate as someone who's helping you with something or supporting you with something. But you got to learn how to do it yourself too, right? There's not always going to be support from the outside.
That we're not victims. In many cases in most cases we volunteered. We have, because we didn't realize it. But how do we now learn and then stand up and operate responsibly on our own behalves, be our own advocates?
And I don't think we should be afraid, right? Because it's like everything else that we do. playing sports or even entering our first job, hands-on is the best way to learn. So I see self-advocacy, in the fact that we're going to hands-on learn and understand these processes, right? Or these ways of doing things, or these meanings of words. So hands-on is the best. And if it is all about your stuff or you in general, your family, you want to hands-on learn it to, in a way, protect yourself, protect your family. So I think it's the best way really to move forward in this journey.
I agree. Yeah, it's not something that, having someone advocate for you is not a bad thing, but it makes far more sense to figure out how to do it for yourself, I think. And I think an advocate can sometimes connote an aggression, and that's not how we're meaning it at all, really. It's not aggressive. It's just learning and understanding. So you actually know what's happening and are able to make good choices based upon understanding, comprehension, for another word.
And I think you're both bringing up good points. As it leads to, we're usually accustomed to peacefully standing up or advocating for someone we love, because we don't want to create conflict, but yet we want resolution. But thinking about that for ourselves, now that's something else, and that's what we're doing. We're doing that same seeking of peaceful resolution on our own behalf, and then carrying that out to our families and the broader community.
That's right. And then, as we spoke last episode about how important financial literacy is, right? Now we're on to the topic of legal literacy, how important that is. And even though we know contracts or any language on any document that's legalese, it's very difficult for us to understand, and we're afraid of it, right? Because it's really written for lawyers to understand each other. And I think it's so important that we break that thought or that fear of getting into it, and really putting the time in to start understanding what it says and what it means on that specific contract or that piece of paper you're about to sign. Even the most basic paperwork that you may be signing, so important to not be afraid to understand what it is you're signing. Again, I think that's where we want to really touch on the legal literacy side of things is to make sure that the first thing is not having any fear in getting into the subject, right? Because it is so important for us to move forward in the right direction. Once we, little by little, doesn't mean you have to understand the full 109 pages on that first day you got them, but if you start with the first paragraph and really digest it and then go from there. But don't be afraid, because I think that's why we are so quick at signing and moving on, but we forget that it's so important to understand what it is we're signing.
I find kind of the same thing in healthcare, where patients will have a loved one in the hospital or something, and somebody in the family really has to jump in there and advocate for that other person and learn a bunch of new words and be the one who can coordinate with the physicians and the patient and communicate to the family what's going on. And they have to work at that. They have to take the time to understand. Or, you come home and the family says, what'd they say? And you go, I don't know. That doesn't work very well. That's not going to help out anybody. So it takes effort.
Funny thing, though, when you mentioned medical or health, and it's like when you are at a hospital and they do talk to you, like if you understand every medical term you're saying, I always ask them, can you please repeat what you just told me? But for the average person, me, can you please explain it? Because they tend, of course, that's their day-to-day routine. They're talking medical terms, but I do I pause and I ask them to read it to me in a different way that I can understand it. And they will, but it doesn't come natural. You do have to ask for it.
Absolutely. And I think when we're talking about, signing contracts, ticking the box, which is a signing of a contract, whether we realize it or not. But I may not, or we may not understand everything in that 109 pages of the contract, all the legalese, but we don't step back and ask a more basic question of who are the parties in this contract, and what is my responsibility, my obligation, and what are the obligations of the other parties, in addition to who they even are. And how am I signing this contract? Under what title is my obligation? And that's another subject we'll be getting into. But, who are we in this contract? That's a big subject. That's like a basic entry into what am I doing?
So it boils down to, Eliza, what you're saying is being curious and ask more questions. And when you ask more questions and you get answers, you ask more questions. So something to that effect. Is that what we should be doing always?
Yeah.
Not just
always,
settling.
so that we know we've contracted, but yes, ask questions.
Yeah, and being willing to be vulnerable about not knowing, because it's hard for some people, I think, to just admit, I don't know what that word means. Can you just explain that to me? To me, that's not difficult, but I think a lot of people have a hard time with that, and they don't want to admit, or they don't think they're capable of figuring out what some of these technical words mean. And if you ask, really anybody's capable of understanding them. You just have to have an explanation.
Right.
As I was going through some administrating training in my younger years, I set something as a rule for myself. Again, self-advocacy, right? I said and we used to have conference calls very often. They weren't on Zoom. They were just conference calls. And my rule to myself was, I am not going to get off this call without asking at least one question. So that was like my standard rule for me, because to me, asking a question, no matter if it was a silly question, or maybe everybody else may have known the answer to it, I still wanted to make it that goal to ask that one question, because leaving that call, I wanted to at least learn one thing off of that call. So when you add up all of those answers to the questions that you bring up for yourself, you accumulate an abundance of learning and knowledge. And if you think about it, if these calls were weekly, that's a ton of knowledge by the end of the year that you're going to gain. So it's exactly the same thing on the legal side, on contracts or language that's on documents you're about to sign, is you need to, as Eliza pointed out, be curious, ask questions, and don't be afraid of asking the question, or not knowing the meaning of that specific word, like Ken mentioned. So
my guess is there were a lot of people on those calls that were very happy that you asked those questions, because they probably had the same questions and didn't want to put themselves out there and ask.
I'm positive that there were, and I'm sure there was also people like, oh, there's Rose's question of the week or something, right? What I honestly didn't matter for me. My goal was, for me, I wanted to make sure I had something of value to leave off of that call. And it was my question that I wanted to be involved in the conversation for that purpose. So
yeah, I think that's self-advocacy personified there. That's about as perfect an explanation as you get for it.
Absolutely. And I agree. I'm glad you're a question asker. It always helps us hear.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at it, just getting into this one sentence, the power of this great book we're reviewing, but we look at the word legal awareness. Okay, when we sign something, when we're contracting, generally the only thing in our minds is, what am I getting? What am I getting? What did I just get? Okay, some benefit, some privilege, something. But then look at this legal awareness, understanding, first of all, understanding contract, obligation, bound. Okay, that's all associated with the legal, a contract. So let's get into the mindset of not only viewing and thinking about what I'm getting, but who are the parties and what are then my responsibilities in return. And that part's not convenient to think about. It's like, that's not convenient. I'm more interested in what I just got.
So I just got this, but what did I just give up?
Mm-hmm.
How about that?
Yeah.
Yep. I'm heading to the next page if you guys are okay with it.
Ready.
There we go. Knowing one's rights and how to protect them.
Yes.
Unaggressively, peacefully.
Mm-hmm. That's what we're all about, right? Is as we're learning this process or journey, as we're going through this journey, that is what we want to also move forward with, this in a peaceful way, non-belligerent. We want to comprehend all of this without any emotions getting involved. So.
And knowing your rights, I mean, actually being understanding before you get into a difficult situation is really helpful. And I think most people have a tendency to wait until an emergency comes up and then try to figure out how they got in that mess. And if they'd have done some pre-effort, probably could have kept out of a lot of trouble to begin with. It's always better to stay out of trouble than it is to try to get out once you're in there. But it can be kind of fun doing that too, actually.
Just for you, Ken.
Yeah.
It's like, ooh, a challenge, and you're good at it. But that's because you've learned self-advocacy. Just right now, grab your phone or your computer and just look up advocacy and self-advocacy. You've learned how to handle things you've learned your different positions. Here in these types of discussions, what are my different hats? What are the different positions that I hold and all of this stuff? We'll call them hats, but in contracts, we do have different positions, and we'll learn that as we go along.
Now, the one mistake that we don't want to do is pick up our phone, hear about something, and then say you have an issue with authority, right, with the police officer or whatever, and then you go off of what you saw in that video to stand up for your rights. Well, that's not self-advocacy because you just saw a 30-second video, right? It's more getting into the guts of the information before you can stand up for yourself. Not saying that you shouldn't at the time. I'm just saying that is what I am starting to see a lot, is even put downs by the police officers, because there are a lot of people running off with just a 30-second video and trying to implement it for themselves when they really do not know what it really means. So to protect ourselves and to make sure we do move in the right direction, I think it's important also to not just go with the flow and take action when really you don't understand what it is you're doing.
And a lot of times those conversations start with, you can't do that to me. I know my rights. And they really don't know their rights. They're projecting something they've heard.
Exactly. And that's very, I'll use the word dangerous. That's very dangerous. You should not do that.
And I think so many people think of self-advocacy is just punching back, something that is in some way verbally or otherwise violent. Mm-hmm. And, for me, when I see that is the opposite of what we're talking about, and where I have, it's not a natural, natural, first choice for me anyway, but that there's another way. If we're not coming in peace and with knowledge, we're probably not choosing to learn the right pathway.
Yeah, the aggression really comes from the halfway understanding, in my experience. People get a little bit of information and then they vomit it all over the place as if they actually knew the full thing, but in an aggressive way, usually, because they feel like they have to defend. But if you understand the material better, then you realize there's really no need to defend. There's a different way to go about it that's not aggressive at all, that gets you a much higher probability of the result that you want without trouble along the way.
Yeah, and I think we have said it once before, but self-advocacy is more of a strategy versus a struggle.
Yes.
And just envision, right, standing up for your rights because you actually do know them and you have support behind it.
Yep.
The empowerment of an individual when that takes place. You don't even have to be loud. You can be calmly speaking and stand up for your rights because you know and you have the support for it.
Or even not speaking because you don't have to give information.
Exactly.
And the exciting part of this conversation is that what we're doing is inviting you to hang with us, because we want to speak about that light and knowledge at the end of the tunnel. There'll be some underlying, some preliminary information, comprehension that we'd like to share with you, but we are getting there. So hang with us. It's a great book.
Okay, so this can involve learning about consumer protection laws. Anybody can study that. It's pretty simple. And now with AI, you can ask it all kinds of good questions. Don't believe everything it says, but it's helpful to figure these things out. Understanding the implications of signing contracts. We've talked about that a lot. And knowing how to seek legal redress when necessary. For most people, it's really not going to be necessary very frequently. But we'll get into some ways of doing that later on down the line. Again, non-aggressively. Anything else anybody wants to say on that page?
This probably carries through everything, but I have learned to now look at who is signing that contract. If it asks me for an identifying number that is me, I'm always asking on what behalf I am signing this contract. That is a huge subject, but what is a foundational piece of starting to ask questions.
And always remember, the more you know, the less someone can control you and the less confusion for yourself.
Yes.
And the less argumentation and so forth, because if you do know, you don't have to argue about it. You already know.
Yeah.
And you have no obligation to convince anybody else of what you know to be true. Although most people feel like they do have that obligation.
Yeah.
So community support networks. Let's talk about some of the different ways that could be perceived and utilized.
Well, first of all, let's talk about community. I started this journey with a global community, like finding like-minded, basically those that knew a whole lot more than I did, but I had the same feeling that was a pathway that resonated with me. So my community wasn't my local, it wasn't talking about just my local farmers market. My community has been international. So don't, start out looking there. And that's what we're doing here.
Yeah, the way I see community is exactly us three. We're a community. It does not have to be a humongous group. Can start with one and build from there, right? So there's three of us. We gather often and talk about different topics. That's community for me. And then, of course, there's more people involved with us, but the fact that we are so connected, the wisdom that I get from each of you, the knowledge that I gain, I mean, that is a huge community. That is so valuable. And that's how I see community at this moment in time.
Me too. And, it's interesting because I think we're kind of weirdos in a lot of ways, but I think there's other weirdos like us that aren't spending all your time on entertainment, watching television, listening to the news, and watching football games. Those things just, to me, don't interest me. If I'm not learning something, I feel like I'm wasting time for the most part. And with you guys, I'm always learning something. We're always challenging each other to look a different way at something and see, what do you think about it this way? Because it's so easy to get locked into your own way of thinking and then just confirm your own biases over and over and over, unless you're willing to let people challenge you. And it can get, we can get a little heated sometimes, right? But we don't get angry with each other. We're just challenging each other's way of thinking. And that's useful.
And we have so much fun. And a lot of my fun has come from learning something and then like laughing at myself. We see these memes all over the internet, and most of them, if we are laughing at them, it's because it's somehow laughing at something. Well, I used to do that, or I used to think that, or I might be still doing that. So have some fun with it, and joy and love, because that's what we have here. We have love. So we can have the challenges between us and grow and learn. And then lots of humor, if that's your thing.
And because the material is definitely challenging in general, the fact that we have that support team, right? We don't have to go at it alone. And I think that's the biggest part, because at times, like, it is definitely very challenging to try to understand a specific, word or a specific phrase. And I think that's where it's huge to have that support team. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I find myself, you learn something in a certain way. And so you come at that topic from the direction and somebody else may come at that topic from a completely different way. And you have to kind of let yourself settle for a minute to think, okay, well, how could I look at it that way? And how would that look differently? And usually there's some value in that other way of looking at it. That doesn't mean you have to just give up what you're thinking, but being open to another way of considering it can be very, very helpful.
100%.
Absolutely. And you both have taught and helped me so much. So this community and then the broader community has been like, I just love it.
Cool. And then just to also cover this, because I know we will have to expand further. Again, it's not just us three. There's more in the group and so forth. But the other type of community can actually also be local, right? And eventually, I think we'll get there where we will want to build a local community. Us three, we're all over the place. I'm in Mexico right now, Australia for Eliza, and then Missouri for Ken. But I think there is going to be I'm going to say it's going to be important to also establish local, as soon as you walk out your door type of community. So we'll talk about that more.
And that's much harder for me. It's not a natural thing for me to find people in the local community that think the same way. It's much easier on the internet to run into other folks because just how the networks work on the internet.
Exactly.
It's true. We would all love to embrace our family, like our immediate family, family. Like you and others have become my family, but I love my family, but this is not a path and a journey, a way of comprehension and living that they are choosing. I love them for where they are at. And that's what I think we learn is we love people for where they are at, but we have a community, a like-minded community that is separate from that. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. In the beginning, it was a little rough. It was like a combination of rejection and why aren't they listening? And I'm hurting for them that they would not want to know this. But I've moved beyond that, and I'll be there for them.
So building and participating in community support networks can provide the emotional and practical support necessary for this challenging endeavor. I think we've covered that really well. But yeah, the emotional support is really, really useful because sometimes you think you're a nut, and it's nice to see that there's other nuts around, you know?
I call them purple sheep. It's like, I'm not a black sheep. I'm a purple sheep in purple school.
And proud of it, right?
And proud, card-carrying, proud purple sheep. Yes.
See, purple sheep, I think nut was a word you mentioned. Weirdo. I was thinking more like a nerd, like nerds. We're nerds, but no, because we're into all this material. But I guess we have many different nicknames.
Yes.
I'll take them all. No problem.
Yep.
Same here.
Should I go to the next slide?
Yes, I think we covered that one really well.
Okay. Now, this is the last slide. So what do you guys think?
Pooling resources is not just pooling financial or physical resources. What we do here is, a few times a week when we get together, we are pooling our resources. We're pooling what we've learned. We bring things forward for discussion. That's a huge part of pooling resources. As it says, we share knowledge, etc.
Yeah, I think it's like sharing our skills, right? Our knowledge. Because immediately when we do see that word resource, it goes for some reason into like finances or money. I don't think we've had to really do anything there. It's more so on each other's level of knowledge. We've shared it and been able to help each other that way. So,
well, and we've all had access to a specific type of training that was particularly useful, and then bring it to the other two, and we go, "Oh my gosh, yeah, I need that," where I may not have ever had access to it if you didn't bring it to us.
Or invited us to different calls that some have been very beneficial and others have not.
Yeah.
But it's okay. It's all part of it. So
That's right.
All part of the journey.
Yes.
Well, and it does take, it does take patience. And I think some people may have a problem with some of the stuff that we run into that we just are okay with, and it just rolls off of us, because you're trying to gather what you need and let the other stuff just roll off. And there are going to be moments in which your time is going to get wasted a little.
Yeah, a little. It's sort of like planting a garden, isn't it? You get some weeds, you get some are just duds, God bless them. And then you get some phenomenal, fruit-bearing, vegetable-bearing plants that's like, wow, those are the fruits. And so you're going to plant a lot of seeds. You're going to just look at this as your garden and everything that comes your way. And some things will bear phenomenal fruit, and you focus there.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And some of the greatest learnings you get is from what didn't work.
That's true.
It's not always fun, but it's helpful.
Nope.
Because I think Raina Estelle and I are very similar from the standpoint that we test everything out. You just got to just jump in there and do it and see what happens. And it's not always going to go the way you want. But I learned the best, I wouldn't say the best lessons. I learn more clearly and more, it goes deeper in me when I screw something up. Because if something doesn't work, I never do that again. And
I agree.
I think a lot of people, they're not open to new things, so they just do the wrong thing over and over and over and over again. It's like the person that, has 30 years of the same year experience in something rather than 30 expanding years of new things being learned.
Yep. Testing it out. You need to test it out, see if it works.
Yeah. I love theory, but if I haven't tested it, I don't believe the theory yet.
Yep.
You both are rock stars when it comes to that, and teach me so much, because I also learned. I have always said that there is actually a bit of joy in being wrong. There is, because how do you grow if you're always right? Okay, and if you are want to stay in an environment that's your level, your space of knowledge, where you can always be right, you'll never move anywhere. And what we're talking about is a bit of a new world on how we think about who we are, how we are operating, and more importantly, how they, and we can talk about they, have us operating, how we have been taught to operate. So that's where we will eventually talk about a paradigm shift on who we are.
So
and that's exciting.
So always being wrong, and it's always your fault. Those are okay things.
They are.
That they really help you grow.
Mm-hmm.
So always being wrong, and geez, what did I say? Always being
your
wrong,
fault.
and then always my fault. Accountability.
Yep.
Yeah.
Accountability. That's very, very important. That word is super important.
It is, man. Anytime you're making your problem somebody else's fault, you're not learning. You're not growing. You're just stuck.
Good.
Am I accountable, or am I a victim?
Mm-hmm.
So.
And as we go, I think we'll learn a lot. I think we'll learn how important that word becomes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always say, if it's not my fault, I can't fix it. So if I want to make it somebody else's fault, I'm screwed. I'm the victim, right? But if I realize everything that happens is my fault, then I have the ability to fix everything that happens.
Wow. And do we learn when we have to sit there and fix it ourselves?
That's a great standpoint.
Yep.
And it's really the only one where you're sitting in just a pile of mush. You get the word, you're mired.
Yeah.
In what it is, mired in mud, you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So I love it. If it's not my fault, I can't fix it. My responsibility. And how we fix it is important. We're not going out swinging. It's going to be in peace and focus.
And starting out with "it's my fault" is a really good way to get to that, right? Because if it's that guy's fault and he's hurt me and he did this and he's doing that and he's got to quit that can turn into aggression really, really, really rapidly. But when you recognize I'm doing this to myself, the aggression kind of dies down and you can get peaceful and actually calm the emotion and begin to rationally work through changes you can make that will get the result or have a higher probability of getting the result that you really want.
Yeah, and one of the things here that the sentence indicates, provide mutual aid to help each other break free from debt and legal entanglements. I think we have proof of concept of us helping each other actually with that exact sentence there.
Yep.
We've gone through it. So hopefully in the near future, we can definitely share.
Raina Stella paid off my stuff. That resolved it. No, that's not what happened.
When they find out what happened, they'll be amazed. Okay, but it'll be in the near future, guys. So that's important. And then the next one, these networks can also advocate for systematic changes. Now, we're talking the community, right? Mm-hmm. Can you guys break that down for me or help me understand? Like, we're definitely on a journey to peacefully, right, have these discussions, but as a community, right, how could we advocate for systematic changes internally within ourselves?
Well, systemic changes would be more in an organizational kind of situation. That's a little tougher to get to, right? But the only way you get there is by each individual taking responsibility and then growing that, right? So many times people think, what I need to do is go attack that part of the system, tear it down or whatever. That part of the system is there because it fills some kind of void in the responsibility taking capacity of people, in my experience. So there's two different, who was it? Bucky, who's the guy that said, make the paradigm that's current unnecessary by coming up with a new way of looking at things. I forget the exact words, but you remember what I'm talking about? You guys know what I'm saying? Okay. You can either attack what's going on or you can come up with a new way. And I think people will a lot of times say, like, even, tear up the Fed, break down the Federal Reserve. Well, that sounds cool. Tear down the enemy, right? But it's there because a lot of people use it and need it and are used to it. And destroying it would leave a void. And it makes far more sense to teach people things so that it becomes unnecessary. That's a little longer, harder process, though. Yep.
And then it continues with such as more accessible financial education. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to guess that's on us.
Absolutely.
Not necessarily a systemic change.
Yeah. Well, it can help. I think that us educating each other, I think that's where the systemic change comes from, but from a bottom up rather than a top down. And I think we all get used to that top down concept of us being governed, right? Yep. Instead of what the concept of America was, which is self-governance. So learning control and understanding and self-responsibility on the individual level, that grows and the system changes as a result of that bottom-up change. But the tendency is always to fight that thing up there rather than trying to assist the people around you to grow into someone who doesn't need that thing up there.
Which, of course, is not our objective is to do that. Our objective is to definitely the community.
Correct. Yeah.
Educate ourselves and help each other.
Yeah.
out.
Make the system obsolete by having the community not need the system, not by tearing the system up.
Exactly.
Yes.
And it ends with more transparent legal processes. Go ahead, Eliza. And it ends with that.
I was listen and learn. Well, you both, really said it all. But it does get down to that what we're looking at is systemic changes. And I was going to say the same thing. It starts with us. The system's there because us have allowed. It's either been made convenient and we've fallen asleep at the wheel because we only looked at the benefit or what we needed. Now we're finding that that a lot of those things are not worth how we really want to operate. So we need to learn to come forward on an individual basis and look at this more accessible financial education and transparent legal processes. A lot of it's not what we're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
That financial education and legal processes are not of the world that we can readily see. And that's what we'll be getting into throughout this book, that we need to, Ken mentioned the word capacity, that we will be operating those systems from another capacity where we are more in control, where we have a voice, and we can have the peaceful but powerful outcomes that we deserve as the men and women and families that we are.
I think a lot of people, when they hear some of these words, they'll be thinking things like get involved in the system, get out there and vote, participate in organizations and that kinds of thing. This may be the wrong thing to say out loud, but I haven't found that to be very effective. I actually got voted into a position in my area, and so I got to participate in politics. And I wasn't there very long before I figured out that wasn't going to accomplish anything. Making them unnecessary is what is going to accomplish something by becoming self-governed. Taking that responsibility rather than trying to force something through that system that is just broken.
Self-advocacy. Mm-hmm. Self-governed. I like that. That's the synonym I think we've been looking for.
Awesome. That's great.
All right. Anything else, or are we to the end for tonight?
It's been a great conversation, guys.
It was. And it's like be the powerhouse, but the power is like so quiet. Right?
Yep. Yeah, if you really are powerful, I had a Newfoundland dog for a long time, and they're huge dogs, right? And they just lumber around and don't make any big deal about themselves at all. Our first one died, and I went to get another one. This is when I was in Italy. And strangely enough, the place where they grew the dogs, I don't know what the right term, I guess they're not farming the dogs, but you know what I mean. Where the dogs were available to buy. How about that? They raised two different kinds of dogs. Newfoundlands, these great big things, and Yorkshire Terriers. And the little Yorkies are making all kinds of noise and jumping and this, that, and the other. And the Newfs are all just kind of looking at them, laying there sleeping, because they had the power. They didn't have to prove it. But the Yorkies didn't have the power, so they tried to make a big deal and prove it. And I see that a lot in humans, the same kind of thing. Usually the people that are all aggressive and mad and angry and, they don't really have the power, and so they have to fake it. And it doesn't accomplish a whole lot. Whereas the people that really know what they're doing can just stand in their square and not be knocked over.
Can't wait to get to that position there.
Yes.
All right. This has been fun.
Silent power.
Yeah.
Silent power.
Yes, exactly. All right, guys.
Thank you.
This was really fun. Thanks for sharing this evening, as always.
I've had a great time, guys. Thank you so much.
It's been fantastic.
All right.
We'll see you later.
Everybody come back
time.
for the next one. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Love you guys.
Love you too.
The views expressed in this Liberty Ark podcast are for informational and educational purposes only. They do not constitute legal or tax advice, and they may not reflect the official positions of anyone at all, really. We want to express our appreciation to the authors of the unpublished manuscript titled The Great International Heist, on which the Liberty Ark podcast is based. Rebecca and Jonathan Rodrigues, the authors, provide courses that go into much greater depth and are available at libertyarkpodcast.com/white rabbit.